A young woman who had once been silenced by strict agreements finally began to speak. And what she shared was wild, dramatic, and headline-worthy. Whispers began suggesting that Prince Harry might not be the biological father of Meghan Markle's daughter, Liette. For a second, everything froze. No one could tell if this was just gossip gone too far or the early spark of a royal plot twist. But one thing seemed obvious. Meghan looked rattled. Because if the surrogate rumour ever held weight, the entire narrative Meghan and Harry curated, their brand, their family image, their break from the crown, would start to crack. And this is where the mystery thickens. To understand the version of events around Liette's birth, you have to understand Colorado. Not the mountains, not the scenery, but the legal system. Colorado is known for some of the most surrogate-friendly policies in the US, and the standout detail is simple. You can welcome a baby there without leaving any public trace of the woman who carried it. In Colorado, the surrogate's name can be legally removed from final paperwork. The intended parents appear as mother and father, regardless of who carried the child. No one is obligated to disclose biological information. No hospital is required to mark that a surrogate took part at all. It's a perfect setup for privacy, and around the time Liette arrived, Colorado became more than just a place. It became a clue, a hint pointing at a version of events that didn't fully match the official story. Soon, whispers started to circle about a young woman who had given birth in Colorado around the same time. A woman whose story was never meant to surface. The more curious minds dug, the more one name kept reappearing. A 23-year-old who reportedly delivered a baby just days before Lilith's official birth date. Her identity stayed locked behind NDAs, yet pieces of her experience began slipping through cracks faster than Meghan's team could cover them. People close to the situation claimed she was selected for an ultra-discreet surrogacy arrangement. The terms were harshly clean. Deliver the baby and disappear. She was compensated well for absolute silence. A high-end condo in Denver, rented through a shell company, housed her during the final stretch. When investigators followed that paper trail, it allegedly led back to a business partner linked to the Sussex Circle. The rules, insiders said, were simple. No interviews, no photos, no contact after delivery. And for a long while, she obeyed. She disappeared from public view. No baby entered her life. No pictures, no family announcements, no evidence she was raising a child. Then, after years of quiet, something shifted. Her name began showing up in places it shouldn't. Private circles, legal murmurs, and discreet conversations where people wondered about a birth that didn't quite align with the official timeline. She hadn't spoken publicly, but she had spoken. And what she shared next rattled the entire narrative. For months after the birth, the alleged surrogate carried a private uncertainty, a detail she never questioned until one offhand comment in a hospital room reframed everything. According to her account, as she rested after delivery, a staff member casually mentioned donor information being on file. The word donor stopped her cold. Donor? Up until that moment, she believed the child she carried came from Meghan and Harry's own biological material, a standard surrogate setup. That was the understanding when she signed. That was the assumption she trusted. But suddenly the details didn't line up, so she started asking questions. And the answers she got were stranger than anything she expected. According to what she later shared, Harry's DNA had allegedly not been part of the fertilization process at all. The embryo was reportedly created through anonymous donor methods. No proof of whose egg or sperm was used was ever shown to her. Lab files, medical reports, and implantation paperwork stayed sealed. The more she uncovered, the more she felt less like a participant in a family-building journey and more like a vessel in a secret arrangement. She carried a child under a story she believed, a story that now seemed to wobble. When certain portions of her NDAs began to weaken and her conscience pushed her forward, she didn't run to tabloids. She went to lawyers and investigators. And according to people who claim to have seen pieces of her statements, her main allegation was blunt. Prince Harry was not the biological father. It was the alleged twist that blew the entire rumour wide open. The twist Meghan feared. The twist that made one unusual birth certificate look like the beginning of a different explanation entirely. And now that the supposed surrogate was speaking privately, the quiet machinery of the monarchy began to react. Because if the allegation held any weight, this wasn't just a family issue, it was a royal nightmare. From the moment her information reached certain officials, the palace machine reportedly shifted gears. No press briefings, no public comments, just silent motion, the kind reserved for situations that threaten the architecture of the crown. Insiders say senior aides were briefed on 3 specific elements. First, the missing legal name on Lilith's certificate. Second, the Colorado surrogacy trail. Third, the surrogate's claim about Harry's biological connection. Individually, they could be dismissed, but together they targeted what the monarchy guards most fiercely: lineage. Behind palace walls, lawyers were consulted, constitutional experts were pulled in, and senior officials reportedly reviewed every document attached to Lilith's arrival. Because if the alleged surrogate was telling the truth, even in part, this wasn't just a juicy scandal. It was a succession-level problem. A child publicly presented as a royal daughter might not automatically qualify for the line of inheritance. Titles, privileges, and royal standing hinge on biological bloodlines, not celebrity, not marriage, not public sympathy. And within the institution, everyone understands that once lineage is questioned, trust shatters. And once trust shatters, the institution strains. To palace officials, this wasn't gossip. It was a 5-alarm situation. As they sifted through documents and testimony, comparisons between Meghan's 2 births became impossible to ignore. Patterns once dismissed as privacy now looked like signals. One child with a timeline that mostly aligned with reality. Another child with a narrative that felt engineered, tightly managed from medical paperwork to public outings. And suddenly, the anonymous surrogate's allegations made those oddities feel less random. Because if Lilith's arrival involved a surrogate, if donor material was used, and if discretion was required to preserve a royal image, then the strange documentation and missing details weren't oversights. They were components of a strategy designed to preserve a story that now showed its cracks. As investigators reconstructed timelines and testimonies, new questions began to surface. Not about Meghan, about Harry. What did he know? When did he learn it? And was he ever informed of the full picture? People close to the situation say Meghan's deepest fear isn't public embarrassment. It's Harry discovering he may have been excluded from the biological process entirely. The surrogate's private statement implied Harry wasn't part of the conception. The paperwork showed his legal name missing. The secrecy around the pregnancy shielded him from routine medical details. Because this wasn't just about keeping the world away from the truth. It was about keeping Harry away from it. The man who left his country for her. The man who defended her against the palace, the tabloids, and the public. The man who believed the story exactly as it was presented. If the surrogate is right, Harry may have been used more as a symbol, a royal figurehead placed in a modern fairy tale the world was meant to adore. And if that holds any weight, then the final fracture won't come from the palace or from the press. It will come from Harry himself. In every narrative, there's a point when the truth stops whispering and starts pounding on the door. For Meghan and Harry, that moment has arrived. The polished image, the modern royal romance, the great escape from tradition now teeters on unstable footing. A missing name, a hidden surrogate, a donor file, a panicked exchange behind closed doors. Piece by piece, the story they built is slipping from their grip. Within the palace, a heavy silence settles. The kind that hovers right before history resets itself. Advisors watch, lawyers prepare. No one speaks loudly because they don't need to. The facts are now louder than any press release could ever be. And in California, a different silence hangs over the Sussex home. Not the peace of privacy, but the tight, anxious quiet that comes when someone realises the story they've told the world might not survive scrutiny. Because if the surrogate's account holds truth, if Harry is not the biological father, if Lilith's bloodline doesn't align with the crown, then this isn't merely a family secret. It's the unravelling of a royal myth. And myths never fall softly, they fall loudly, they fall publicly, they fall in ways no one can control. Now the world waits, breath held, curious and cautious for the chapter that follows. A chapter not moulded by PR teams, glossy documentaries, or polished speeches, but by the blunt force of truth. And when that truth finally arrives, one question will rise above the rest. In a story built on royalty, what happens when the royal bloodline may not be real? The fairy tale is splintering, and the next revelation is on its way. Not everyone will walk away royal.